I'm Austri Reifer, and you're listening to Good Vibes Sunday, a podcast brought to you by I Am Warhol, the blog. Every other Sunday, I'll be sitting down with provocative thinkers, industry disruptors, and culture changers. My intention for every guest is to talk about breaking barriers, shifting old paradigms, and really just opening up in vulnerable conversations. In between guests, I'll be having Candid Sundays, which are where I just come in and I have a candid day where I just talk about life and I do life with you guys. Good Vibes Sunday is a place to fuel up on good vibes every Sunday. I don't pretend to have the answers to all of life's questions, and I only hope that my personal experiences and those that I share of others will help you in some way to be able to relate those into your life and hopefully bring you that much closer to the answers that you do seek. So please join me on this journey of getting your dose of good vibes and filling our homes and our hearts with good vibes. Happy Sunday, everyone. Our Good Vibes Sunday guest this week is James Shelby. James is a fellow real estate agent and friend. James is based out of Temecula, California, and he serves surrounding areas. You know, so many people would think that as real estate agents, we don't support each other. There's some crazy rivalry all the time, just like you see in those shows, right? But that's so far from the truth. You know, when we watch James, we are so inspired by his work ethic, the principles he lives by, and just love watching his sweet family through the lens of Instagram. Today we probe James's mind about business, branding, and all things real estate, but honestly, it's Good Vibes Sunday, so we dig just a little bit deeper and we go into principles of life, meditation, affirmations, gratitude, and so much more, you guys. So please help me in welcoming this awesome entrepreneur, real estate agent, and friend, James Shelby.
Hey James, welcome to Good Vibes Sunday.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
All right, James. So let's start from the very beginning here. Real estate, you know, it's a tough career path to choose. When did you really get to know that you wanted to be a realtor?
Oh man, so I didn't really know I wanted to be one, to be honest. At first, I didn't know even what the job was. I've been working pretty much full time since I was 15 years old because my dad had a business, and I just graduated kind of early. I took my, GED or whatever they called, and I got out of high school and started working right away. So I was in the auto glass business for a long time, and when I went to buy my first house, I think it was in 2012-ish, right around there. Yeah. And for a lot of people that know anything about real estate or followed the market for a while, that was a really rough time for real estate and real estate prices. And, you know, it was kind of in the middle of the whole market crash that happened, you know, starting in 2008. And I just knew it was a good time to buy a house, and, you know, prices were finally at a point where I could afford them. So during the whole process of me buying my house, there was our agent, one of the agents that we had worked with at that time, told me, you know, hey, you should get into this, because there were so many short sales at the time and bank-owned properties. And while I was doing my job, my 9-to-5, you know, auto glass business, I was driving around and seeing empty homes, and I would call her and I'd say, hey, this address is empty. Like, what can you tell me about it? It looks abandoned. And she would find the owner, and she would sometimes get a short sale listing out of it. So she's like, you know what? You should get into this business because you're finding all these listings and you're not even an agent. So that was kind of the introduction to, you know, hey, check this out. So that's when I started looking into it and then figuring out, you know, what did the job consist of and how did it all work? And I started doing some numbers in my head, like, dang, if you're good at this, you can make pretty good money. Yeah. So that was kind of the entry level, you know, my entry into the world of real estate.
Nice. So you were young, right? I mean, gosh, that was what you said, 2000?
7 years ago now?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I was
mid-20s?
7 years ago. Yeah, I'm 33 now, so yeah, I was like 25.
Yeah, just getting into the
26.
biz.
Yeah, you had a good head start
Yeah.
there. Yeah, I mean, we're just starting off here with real estate, so
I know we've been following you for a while now, so it seems like you've been really picking up these last couple years now, huh?
yeah. We look at you, we're like, what a veteran.
You're a vet in the game.
Yeah.
I don't feel like one, just because I'm around so many people that have been doing it for a long time. But,
Sure.
I think they say for any business, not even just real estate, I think the kind of general rule of thumb is if you can make it past 5 years, you're probably, going to make it. So I knock on wood, I'm still here.
Yeah.
We're still increasing, every year. So that's a good thing. But, you got to, a coach of mine said you basically have to wake up with zero.
Yeah,
every day.
100%.
No money in the bank, no escrows, no listings. That's the mentality you kind of have to have to
I love
keep
that
growing.
you just touched on that.
No.
Hell yeah, that's like that. I'm like, hell yeah, no, that's super huge because it's so. I mean, this is kind of steering off track here a little bit, and I won't go too much into detail, but Adam and I, we were talking about like for a year there when we first started off, total struggle. Picked up real quick. And then all of a sudden, it's real easy to get comfortable, right? When you're making money and everything seems like it's all rolling into each other. Then you go back into the space where you're like, shoot, everything's gone away again. And then you got to kind of like go back into that place where like, okay, I kind of have to stay with this mindset of like, I don't have the money. Because then it's so easy to fall into this comfort zone, right? So yeah, I love that you touched on that. All right, James.
100%.
Yeah. So shifting gears here, I want to talk about an Instagram story that you posted. I believe it was yesterday. And it really rocked me because it took me back to about 3 years ago when I lost my mom to cancer. I may have talked about this tons here on Good Vibes. So without going too much into that, but it really led me into like a spiritual journey 3 years ago. And it led me to this guy, Michael Bernard Beckwith. I'm not sure if you know who he is. Google the guy. Awesome spiritual leader. And, his practices are all wrapped around like gratitude, manifestation, just so many of those great practices. And the one that I really want to highlight is one where he states, and this is why it reminded me of your post yesterday, because he states that you cannot have what you're not willing to become vibrationally. Right. So he says that you don't attract things into your life. So like the law of attraction says you attract them. No, he says you radiate it. Therefore, it shows up into your life. Right. So like that's why like taking ownership of self-talk is so important. Affirmations that begin with the words like I am and whatever comes after those two words are just so important. Right. So my question for you, James, is what is your relationship with like vibrations, energy, gratitude, affirmations, all of that?
Yes, so much there. And what was his name? Because I want to write that down.
Michael.
Give me his name one more time.
Michael Bernard Beckwith. I mean, just watch one of it. He's on YouTube. But the one that I would say, who did he come on with that we were so inspired? Was it Tom?
No,
it was Lewis.
Lewis Howes.
Oh yes.
Yes, he just did one about 2 weeks ago with him. It was pretty. I was more inspired by that one. Sure. Oshvi's more inspired by the Oprah one, obviously, because she's that.
Well, it's the one. Yeah. It's the first, no, it's the first one I heard, and I feel like when you really kind of start following these guys around, one guy will lead you to another, and then and they're all in some way or form. It's like one big web. They're all connected. So what he said on Oprah, he kind of translated into. It's been about 3 years now since his Oprah one into the Lewis one, and it kind of was a repeat for me. But a lot of new principles were also introduced. So
and I feel like he elaborated a little bit more on Lewis's house.
Right, because it was more business. It was business too. It was more business focused. But yeah,
I love that.
So you've been posting a lot about manifestation, a lot about this stuff. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that fits into your life?
Absolutely. So, I remember the whole energy and the manifestation thing kind of came into my life around the same time as, starting the real estate business because, my dad, I got to give my dad a lot of credit, even though I didn't listen to what he was saying at the time. He used to always tell me like, you need to have some sort of a goal, because when I was young, a little bit of backstory real quick, and I'll answer your question. I apologize, but I had my I had my first daughter when I was 19. So I was pretty young.
Same.
And you guys, you had a child very young too,
For
right?
Sure, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you know how it is when you have a kid, when you're a kid, basically, you tend to you kind of go either two ways. Number one, some parents out there, unfortunately, bail, and someone else raises the kid. Or number two, you go into this like survival mode type of thing where you're like, okay, I have to do whatever it takes to raise my kid. So, at that time, even though I was working, I was paying the bills and taking care of my daughter and my wife at the time, I didn't have like a direction, or, I didn't know what I was doing or where I was going, or even more so than that, like what I wanted to do. When you're 19, whether you have a kid or not, most 19-year-olds don't really know what they want to do, and you kind of, you get a job and you're kind of like, okay, well, I got a job. And then you start acquiring bills, and before you know it, you're 39 and you didn't do anything that you wanted to do. So when I got into the real estate business, it really was something that I was attracted to, that I enjoyed. I always enjoyed even just going in these empty houses that were, bank owned, just looking at I've always been into I don't know if interior decorating is the right word, but just architecture and homes and buildings. And, it just really was interesting to me. And then on the flip side of that, the whole sales aspect of the business kind of resonated with me too, because I love to talk to people. I love to meet new people. Yeah. So, when I got into coaching and started hanging around more people and listening to more people, like you had mentioned, Michael Bernard, and I started listening to more things like a big influence in my life was Kevin Sturdivant. I don't know. Do you know Kevin Sturdivant, the real estate agent?
Yeah,
he owns Case Real Estate.
Yeah, Adam used to follow him like way in the beginning because his buddy Adam Weber was like, "Hey, you got to look at this guy." How did Adam know? I mean, knew him through somebody.
One of the guys in his frat used to work for him. In his
gotcha.
Office.
Yeah, so Adam started following him, and
I started following him when he had like freaking 2,000 people.
I was an early adopter as well. I was telling him that I was fortunate enough to go hang out with him a little bit, and we were at his house and we were talking. I was like, I remember when you had like 1,800 followers, and we were laughing about it. But I started following more people like that, and reading and listening to podcasts, and everyone that was successful was talking about
there's a trend.
There's a trend, and you start hearing people talk about goals and manifestation, and there's books and things out there like The Secret, right? So The Secret.
There you go. Okay, Michael Bernard Beckwith. He's the actual writer of The Secret.
Yeah,
okay.
No,
I did not know that.
He's a writer in The Secret.
Yeah, so he's a co-writer in The Secret. Yeah, absolutely. So it all originated with Michael Bernard. He was the original like freaking godfather of this whole concept. I mean,
if you watch the video of like the one on Netflix, there's a segment of him, or a few segments of him on the show.
Yeah, he is.
Gotcha.
So really quick, I'm like side tangent, but Oprah, she started. It's so funny. She talked about it in I believe it was Goop, a podcast, and she was talking about how she's like, I started talking about this back in the 80s, right? And she goes, I introduced this to my audience, and they were, it was all woo-woo, way more back then.
That was like wizardry stuff. That was like when you had like a pointy hat with stars on it.
Yeah, like Oprah's lost her mind. She's thinking she's preaching and stuff like that. So it's so funny because she says, now I start to see it, and everybody's so much more desensitized to it. So everybody's more open to this idea. So when you say that, like, you start hearing guys like, what is his name, Kevin?
Yeah.
I call him Case because that's how I know him by. But you start to realize this pattern. But yeah, for sure. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. You're 100% right. It's when you start. I mean, they say success leaves clues, right? So it's not rocket science. There's successful people that have built empires from nothing. If you just take a look at what they did and repeat it, you're more than likely going to have some success yourself. So when I started, reading Tony Robbins books and all these gurus, I actually, a lot of my friends would make fun of me for either going to a seminar or reading their books. But when you really read in between the lines, or you really see what they're saying and emulate what they're saying and apply it to your life, things start to change, for the better. That's I don't know where I'm going with this. I hope I'm answering your question correctly.
No, absolutely.
I guess that was more the introduction of those types of things into my life.
Absolutely.
I started doing things more recently, and we can get to this later on if we have time in the podcast, but I implemented a couple of new things into my life before this year that were complete game changers. And one of them kind of goes along with this topic is, I recorded myself saying not only affirmations, but all of the goals and things I was going to achieve, or I am going to achieve in 2019. And I recorded it on, my iPhone in the voice message. And I listened to that every single day, usually once in the morning and once when I am in the sauna. And it almost like imprints it on your subconscious mind.
Absolutely.
You're hearing your own voice say exactly what you are going to do, exactly what you are now, exactly the type of relationship you have with your family. I mean, whatever your goals, whatever you're trying to accomplish, obviously is going to be different. But, and it was a game changer. I started in, I think it was November of last year in preparation for this year, because I felt like last year was amazing and it was a huge year for myself, my company, but there was other things that I wanted to accomplish that were outside of the business scope of things, and also, wanted to do more business stuff. So, that's been a game changer. There hasn't been a day that's gone by that I haven't listened to that. And it's incredible the effect that it has on your decision making throughout the day, because you can almost hear yourself saying, like for instance, one of them is about, I wanted to get down to like a certain body fat percentage. And one of the affirmations is, I eat 90% whole foods. And I can hear myself saying that when I'm going to grab like something I shouldn't be eating. Now I hear myself saying like, I eat, 90% whole foods. This does not fall into that category. Stop now.
Yeah,
whereas before I would have been like, you know what? Let's go for it. We'll make it up at the gym later or whatever.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's been crazy. And if you would have told me like 4 years ago, like, hey, record yourself talking and saying your goals and listen to it every day, I would have said, yeah, I don't think so. That's weird.
I mean, to kind of tie into what you're saying, it's, you're like telling me, I don't know if that answers your question. No, it does, because it's an unfolding, right?
Yes.
So like I mentioned, I mean, you think about Michael Bernard, or you think about Case, right? So Kevin, they all began somewhere, right? And then it begins to unfold. You begin to kind of tie it all into, like, things will start to happen.
Well, I think it's all with it. It's unfolding you. It's stripping of you where you had all these barriers at once. So each step is like a strip of what you had in the past.
The resistance.
And then you wouldn't be so resistant to what it would be back then. You know, somebody says 10 years ago, wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and you're like, oh, dude, and I'm not going to do that. But now you're like, yeah, I need to do that to be successful.
Well, then you become it. So let me bear it down to its bare bones. So for example, when I first started my journey, just like you, it's like you begin to like say, all right, well, this stuff's woo-woo. And then it kind of, something triggers you, right? Mm-hmm. It makes sense. It resonates. And I say it's more of a remembering. So, like babies, I've talked about this before. I think you've heard me talk about it with Brandy, but we are born pure, right? We're born with no resistance. I feel like we begin to pile on so much resistance, so much shit, right? So over the years we do this. Then I think our entire job is to begin to unveil and like kind of remove all of that weight. But it's so hard to do that. So it's an unfolding. So this journey, this spiritual journey of manifestation. And when I think you said, Kevin, you posted this yesterday. You said Kevin said that you have to either, I think he said you have to have it, or to have it, you have to become it, which is what Michael Bernard says. He says to have something, you have to become it vibrationally. You have to align with it, right? So to do that, it takes a lot of non-resistance, which takes being in uncomfortable situations, which, by the way, freaking sucks.
Yeah, surrendering,
yeah. And to 100%. Do that, yeah, and that whole thing is a journey. So, no, absolutely.
No, it's perfect.
Yeah, for sure.
In that post, I think I know the one you're referring to. Is actually, I was just reposting kind of something Kevin or he goes by Kevin sometimes, Kevin, whatever. But he's dropped so much knowledge, and I hate to keep dropping his name, but anyone listening, especially if you're in the real estate business, or even if you're not, should definitely check out his stuff, his podcast, his project mindset. But he does talk a lot, like you said, about mentally becoming what you are aspiring to be. And it's so hard to grasp that. And that's why when I had posted, I said, this is something I'm still working on, because when you're so far from your goal or what you want to become, it's hard to, you say, well, how can I become that when I'm so far away from it, right now in my current situation? How can I live like I'm a millionaire when I have no money in the bank?
It's a consistency, and that's why I posted that one video of like David Goggins yesterday. And he goes, you have this goal, and he goes, I want to be a doctor, and you're like, but when I go in there, I have to go to school for 8 years, and this sucks. And then you're not good at something, and then you start questioning yourself, and you start deferring and deterring, and at the end game, it's just you being consistent.
It's living in a space.
Yes,
it's living in a space, man. When you get into that space of like, all right, I am like, okay, and then there's the flip side of that. You could sit there and say, well, there's like, I think Tony Robbins says, there's no weeds in your garden. You can close your eyes and say that all day long, but the damn weeds are there. You have to take action at some point, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the affirmations combined with taking action, with being bold enough to actually take action and do what you are, setting out to do, which a lot of people don't. When it comes to taking action, it all sounds great in theory, but to take action, it's a lot harder. You wake up early, James, you go to the gym, you do all these things. Sometimes, me and Adam used to work out all the time, but then I see you, and we kind of have stopped a little bit, and I see you, and I'm like, damn, like he's taking action. Is that easy? No. But you're doing it. You're becoming it. It's really a combination of those things, and then just genuinely believing in it. And then it just starts to become your reality. You begin to create those opportunities around yourself, and it all just kind of happens, And then you're in flow. You're in flow, and that's the whole thing. It's a space. But then the ones that victimize themselves and say, well, that happens for those people, right? All good things happen for those people. No, they fucking worked at it. Sorry, they freaking worked at it. It's like, no, that's what separates, the ones, them and us, from just the ones that really victimize themselves. I think that right there, when you're in a victim state, it's so hard to get out of that, because then it becomes everybody else's fault, and you don't take ownership for your own life, your own energy, your own vibrations, whatever you're putting out, you create your reality. Oh,
Amen.
Yeah, you preach, girl. Preach. Sorry. No, I'm glad you brought that up, though, because it is true. People watch The Secret, or they read these books, or they see a clip of Tony Robbins saying, you just think it and you'll become it, and things like that. And all those things are very important. But you're right. You cannot get to where you want to go by just sitting on your couch and repeating affirmations to yourself. There is a point where you have to start putting in the work. But I think the affirmations help you to maintain a positive mindset throughout the tough times and throughout the hard work.
For sure.
It's not magic, but it definitely imprints on your subconscious mind what you want to become, and it's easier to make those phone calls, or put yourself in that uncomfortable situation, or run that extra mile, or whatever the case may be, when you've already told yourself that you are strong, you're confident, you're X, Y, or Z, whatever that might be. It's already imprinted on your subconscious mind. And the opposite can be true as well. If you're constantly telling yourself, oh, I can't do this, or, you're someone from your past telling you, oh, you'll never be anything, and you don't take the proper steps to remove those words from your vocabulary and from your subconscious, then you're going to have a lot harder time reaching the goals that you really want to reach.
I hear you. And those people, the ones that are negative too, the ones that don't serve you as absolutely.
And that's tough. That's not when it's family or friends.
Yeah. And you know, it's so funny. I think it was Gary Vee who said this. He was like, it's not fair to remove everybody out of your life, but it's knowing the difference between really involving yourself and telling them everything. You know, when you tell somebody, they're like, you're insane. You're like, all right, get away from me. Because you kind of have to be a little bit delusional to really be successful, I think. I mean, it's really not delusional. Yes. It's delusional to most people, but you have to think different, right? And not everybody can support that. Yeah.
But you do have to be a little insane, I guess, because to think about even the game of real estate, it's 100% commission-based business. So there is no safety net. No. There is no paycheck for you just showing up and sitting at your desk, which you can get in almost any job.
Yep.
But with any business, whether it's real estate or you sell hot dogs, I don't care what it is, if no one is buying your product or using your service, you're not making any money. So you do have to be, I like to say, kind of like a compulsive gambler. You're gambling every day on yourself that you are going to do what it takes to make the sale or push your product or whatever. And that's not for everyone sometimes.
No, not
and that's okay.
Yeah.
No, we always say that, like, dude, this business, but I felt like I really got into this business even more so because of baseball. Every year was a gamble. I didn't have a contract the following year, and then when I jumped in this business, it was like, this is kind of the same.
Yeah.
Like every sale, this is the sale. I mean,
we just thrive. I think what you said earlier, James, when you said, you know, if I don't wake up every day and I am in survival mode, as in I have to believe I have nothing. That's what it really takes to get through, because if you are comfortable, which a 9-to-5 is very comfortable, which I say, by the way, you could lose that job anyway, right? And
sure,
I mean, you run just as high risk, but it's not for everybody. Being a stay-at-home mom, not to knock on them, I have the utmost respect, but it's not for everybody. Same here, right? Doing this whole thing, not for everybody. All right, moving along here. I heard this quote once from Nate Hughes. He's a pastor from the Grove. We've had him on here, but he says, status is not my business. That, you know, we have to be more concerned about our service than our status. Now, he's basically relating this to life, right? So, for example, like doing things to fit into the status quo, which is basically what we just talked about. Versus basically doing something for the well-being of others. Now, James, this is kind of a little bit of a loaded question, so let me kind of frame this out for you, all right? So let's kind of use the example of weddings. So like if we look at the intention behind why we do things, the intention should line up with the outcome, right? So in other words, cause and effect. So weddings, okay? This is like the most like complete basic example I can give. A woman, because it's mostly the girl, we're getting married. We're all caught up with like flowers, the photos, you know, what are they going to think? How beautiful is my wedding going to be? All of that stuff. And then in that whole thing, you lose. So that's a cause, right? So you lose in that whole transaction, you lose the integrity of why you're doing what you're doing. You lose the intention, which is basically to marry the man you love, you know, to transition into this new chapter, all of that. So the effect of that, which by the way, might add some stress because you're putting all this stress on yourself as a woman, all this kind of stuff. You start to argue with your husband, right before the wedding. So let me translate this into like business. Let me translate this whole idea into real estate. So this is a fact, not an opinion. Most agents, they're out there and they're so caught up in the status, right? So how many closings can I get? You know, how much money can I make? How many clients can I acquire? All of this is the status of it, which is all necessary. But in that whole thing, they lose sometimes the genuine quality of their service, right? So my question for you is, how would you tie this whole status is not my business principle into how you do business?
Yeah, that's a good question. And you are right in the fact that there are agents out there or business owners when it comes to real estate that it's strictly about the numbers, which if I'm being 100% honest, numbers are a huge part of what I track and what I put my focus on, because let's face it, if you aren't closing escrows or taking listings, your business is dying. Yeah. So
absolutely.
To say that, you know, I hate to talk crap on the average agent or just agents in general, because I think we all need to build each other up in the industry. But
I agree. But when it jeopardizes the service, so it's like when you're looking at the numbers, the numbers are necessary, but when it's jeopardizing the service, the quality of a service, because you got to think as an agent, you are providing a service to the masses of like their homes. You're selling people's homes where they build these memories. And like I'm saying, it's not an opinion. It's a fact that so many agents out there, not to talk crap, but the ones that do, they do focus so much more on that, on the back end of like numbers and status and this and what can I buy and all of that, where they lose but the quality of that service, where you really could balance both.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And I think what needs to happen, and now it can go either way. You can have an agent that does 2 deals a year and still provides crappy service.
True.
So I don't know if it's necessarily that the agents get too busy. It's that you either care or you don't, number one. Right. And number two, if it's a lack of customer service because the agent's too busy, then I look at that as he or she does not have the proper systems or does not have the proper delegation in place to give the customer the service that they deserve. Right. So I actually did reach a point where I was starting to see the level of my customer service go down, and that wasn't acceptable. So at that point, it was time to. That's what everyone says. Well, when do you build a team, right? When do you start hiring people? When do you? Some people out the gates want to hire 5 buyers agents, but it's like, you don't need to do that because you have no business. Teams are so sexy; it's the hot topic, but you really don't need to start a team until you get so busy yourself that your level of customer service is starting to drop. And when that happens, you need to start hiring either A, a full-time assistant, B, a buyer's agent, or maybe both. Because you're 100% correct. The level of service, no matter if you do 100 deals a year or 2, the level of service should always be at a high quality, and it should always be consistent.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mean to bash on people, but it's a fact. I'm like super brash on that end because this applies just to life. Like even like Starbucks, for example, let's all admit, like Starbucks years ago was awesome. Then they started to become more about the quantity over the quality. Then they had to reel it back in and start really focusing on basically just making good old coffee, because they started coming up with all the frappuccinos and this and that. And I think that you're right, James, and the reason I asked this question, because I told Adam, I'm like, this guy, he's successful. We really do honestly like honor you. Like we're like, this guy's awesome. Like you are. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. When people say that, it doesn't happen a lot, but when people do say that, it's kind of weird to me because, I mean, I'm a guy that grew up, in a town where the average income is like $38,000 a year for the household income. So, coming from that, and I've lived in, trailers, like it's weird to me to hear that, but I do appreciate it a lot.
We do.
So,
we
dedication.
See it.
No, and what it is, it's I've always admired people who are dedicated.
For sure. And authentic.
Yeah, and people who have played in the game. I mean, when I would show up to the park and I see guys there before me, and I was like, he's a hard worker, man. Like I appreciate his hard work. He would take everything with gusto, and it was awesome to see that. So we see that in you,
for sure,
and we like to see that too, especially with people within the industry.
Appreciate that.
Yeah,
and I hope I answered your question. It's regarding the customer service question. I mean, we definitely have implemented systems and things to make sure that customer service is still at a high level, because you're 100% right when it comes to buying or selling a home or a property. It's a huge deal for a lot of people, and that can sometimes get lost in the shuffle when you do so many transactions that it's almost just like a number to you.
Yeah, and then wouldn't you agree that you stay alive as an agent because of that? Like, I feel like you guys, it's like as a team, you guys provide the good service. You're killing it with numbers, because the good service, look, I feel like good service, it's like your reputation, right? So you give good service, you put that out there into the universe, and you're going to get referral, you're going to get all those coming back, and then you're going to stay alive from that, right? And that's what I'm saying. It's like, I feel like so many agents sometimes, they start off, they start making some money, everything's great, and then it becomes about that, and then their career is short-lived, and then they wonder what happened, right? So I feel like sometimes it's really about that quality of service and really finding the balance, which it seems like you have, because that's why you're successful. It's like you find that balance of like, all right, you know, I'm making money. I'm obviously doing well. It is about the numbers, because that's what keeps you on edge, right? It's what keeps you competitive. Absolutely. Let's not be hypocrites, right? Mm-hmm. Let's do that. But at the same time, it's like, give good service too, you know, in that whole thing. It just makes a well-rounded business. So awesome. All right, let's move along. All right, so let's see. All right, so what are your thoughts on competition? Because I know you kind of talked about this one time. I remember you talked about this in one of your stories, and I loved what you said. We actually did a podcast on competition. I want to see if we align as far as our, our thought process.
Yeah, I think healthy competition is great, you know, especially even within, we're talking about real estate, but even like Adam, for instance, playing baseball, there's competition even just within your own team.
For sure.
I know Pete Carroll's one of my favorite head coaches in the NFL, and obviously a lot of success in college, and he always preaches competition within the team, because that raises the level of skill and intensity for all the players involved, you know, so that when it's time for them to go out and play on game day, they've been competing at such a high level against each other throughout the week during practices and competing for positions on the team, that when it's time to play ball and you know, the lights are on and everyone's watching, you're going to perform at such a high level. So I think competition is important. You know, it's important to know where you are and to know where you stand. But I also think on the flip side of that, you can't compare yourself to someone that maybe has been in the business a long time, or let's say you're trying to get a certain physique and you just started working out and this person's been working out for 5 years straight. Like, you sometimes have to compete against yourself in the sense that, are you better than you were yesterday or last week or a year ago? Right. You know, you're always in competition with yourself mainly, because, you know, when you start comparing yourself to other people, you can easily get discouraged. As long as you're getting better from who you were the day before, I think you're on the right trajectory.
I love that.
No, that was good.
Yeah.
That was perfect.
For sure. Especially the part, we kind of compare it to a race. We say if like you're running a race, you kind of think of it like you're running a race, you have all your competitors next to you. These guys are the ones really, okay, so if you're running a race and you're running against yourself, I mean, that's boring, right? These guys really raise the bar for you. So it kind of keeps you on edge, it keeps you competitive. But at the same time, like you just said, the moment that you stop, turn around, look to see where they are, it robs you of the energy that you could be putting behind yourself to get, you know, one step further, one step ahead to get really to that finish line. So I love that. All right, James. So now thoughts on branding, because you have branded yourself pretty damn well. I've expressed myself to you about this. Like, every time I see you, I think of neoclassic, I think moody, I think gentleman's, you know, I think whiskey, or bourbon maybe, you know, gentleman's lounge. Yeah. I love it. I love it, love it. So and then I see you like in the blue car, like just like old school. Anyway, that's your branding. I mean, that is who you are. I mean, you, your wife, your little ones, I see it. I could taste it. I feel like I know you through that. So how much, like, what kind of role has that played with your brand, as far as like, not your brand, but your business? And then what would you recommend to agents who are listening, or anybody who owns a business, to really put their energy behind branding?
Wow. Well, I appreciate that. My wife, she does such a great job with all those types of things, as far as, you know, decorating. I keep saying decorating. It's so much more than that, but she does a great job with our house. And,
you guys are creating a
we
home,
bounce ideas. Yeah, we love to bounce ideas off each other just like you guys do. And what do you think of this? And what if we did this? This is kind of different. But creating a brand, I got some really good advice. I like to keep referring to the people that gave me advice when I first got into business, because this, again, like I said, success leaves clues. This is not just from me. This is stuff I've learned from other people and have made it my own through the years. So someone told me very early in the business that he said, and I think he might have even got this from Seth Godin now that, and he said, be the purple cow.
Yes, purple cow, Seth Godin.
Love that.
Yes. So he didn't tell me he got it from Seth Godin. I figured that out later. But it doesn't matter. He still gave me the information, and it was invaluable at the time. When you're driving by a bunch of cows and they're all looking the same, how can you be that purple cow in an industry like real estate where everyone and their mom and their brother has a license?
Yeah.
How can you be the one that stands out to where when they think of real estate, you come to mind immediately? And I didn't know how to do that at the time because, again, I was new. I didn't have any money. I didn't know what to do. And it took me a while to figure that out. But you kind of just have to put in the business of real estate, because let's say you have a streetwear brand or something. I can't really tell you how to brand, a street clothing line or something like that, because I've never done that. But when it comes to real estate and building your own personal brand, and I think we can all agree in 2019 with the avenues like Facebook and especially Instagram, building a personal brand is almost more important than the business itself.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this started in like the 2000s, mid to late 2000s, with like the Kardashians and reality TV is really where I think this started, because when you think of Kim Kardashian, and for lack of a better example off the top of my head, I can't think of like what business she owns, right?
Yeah.
But you know who she is.
Yep.
I think that's what you have to create as your own personal brand. Make it, take the things that you love and enjoy and share them with the world, as long as they're nothing. I mean, maybe your brand is building something crazy, who knows, but share those things with the world, because that is what people are going to remember you for. Your business is almost like a subsection category of you as a person. People will remember your style and the way you made them feel. And then, oh, by the way, yes, he does real estate.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get people to remember you for the way you make them feel. And like you said, you almost taste it, right? You can almost taste the bourbon when you see a picture of, the gentleman's lounge or see the suit pictures or whatever. People resonate with that, and they'll remember it, and when it comes to their mom needing to sell a home or whatever, those are the calls I get more often than not, and they happen more and more now. Is, hey, I follow you on Instagram, or I remember seeing your posts, and you always post the suits and stuff, but my mom needs to buy a house now or whatever.
I love that.
And I would just say, take your passions and integrate them into your marketing somehow, because people out there, some are not going to connect, but there's going to be a large portion of a tribe that you can build that will connect and refer you business solely based on you sharing the type of things that you're interested in. And that's like a small portion of it. I mean, there's so much more that we could dig into when it comes to building your brand on Instagram. You can do
a whole episode on branding and just a
podcast. Yeah. I mean,
but,
it has to be done the right way, and it's hard to convey that, but
part two?
We're
part two.
Well, yeah, we can do a part two. There's if everyone wants to keep their eye out, there's a course that I'm going to be having on a program called Top Training, and it's basically for the mortgage and real estate world, so lending and real estate. And I'm actually going to have a whole course about that topic specifically, building a brand, a personal brand, and then correlating that into your business. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. If it's something anyone's interested in, they can check it out. Or
where can they find that, James?
Yes. So the website, and it's not out yet. We're in the middle of building out all the video. It's going to be videos. It's going to be, I'm blanking on the word, but basically like spreadsheets, almost like it's going to be detailed and broken down exactly how to build your personal brand. But it's trainwithtop.com.
Okay. So it'd be like a workshop for folks.
Yeah, and it's for the real estate world and for the mortgage side of things, because lenders need love too. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think any business does. Any business can really reap the benefits of good marketing and branding for sure.
And I think more so now with social media.
Oh, it's huge.
It's so a funnel. It's your click funnel to wherever your brand is.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think it's essential.
100%.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, can I give you a virtual applause? Because that's like, I'm like over here. That is so
No, that was a really good answer.
Yeah.
Good answer. A+ answer.
I keep thinking, like, I hope that was a good answer, because I don't know if that answered everything.
No, that was good. That was good.
Yeah, no, it's so funny when you say about that. Like, as far as, like, we call it a trigger. Like we do the orange, and we're like, we always joke around that one day we want to do a billboard, which billboards are nothing anymore. But if we do one, it'll be to make a statement, but where you just put the orange and people of Riverside see it and they say, oh, there's those two, right? The couple with the orange. Because like you said, it's like you want people to associate whatever it is that your passions are, whatever you're identifying with, you want them to associate that with you when you're on top of mind. You're like, oh, there's that. Like,
yeah, like say like your car, as people drive by, like, oh, dude, I remember that guy from James Shelby guy, and it's not even your car. It's not even resembling, but they scrolled over your profile.
Well, I've even done it. I remember tagging you. I've tagged you a few times. I'm like, I'll tag you. I see a like a neoclassic style room, and I'm like, and it's like moody, and it's like a bar or something. I'm like, there he is. I think of you. So that's right
works.
there. Yeah, it's a trigger. That's awesome.
You got to read. You got to read a book. What is that book? Contagious.
Oh yeah, that's when they talk about
Contagious. It's a book about essentially marketing, about triggering people, and about what you need to have in a brand for people to remember you, to become contagious.
Right.
It's Jonah Berger.
Yeah.
I'm writing that down right now. You guys are dropping some good knowledge.
Yeah, I read it in my marketing class in college, and it was like my mind. I was like, I'd read a page and I would daydream for like 15 minutes.
It's so funny. It's so funny. So hey, let me just I don't even want to go too much into detail because it takes forever. But so I'm Warhol. I'll go into this. So it ties into affirmations and right. So believing in what it is, and those two words being really what you believe you are, right? So, but Warhol came from, Adam was in college and he was taking a course on marketing. We were kind of like writing papers together, even though it wasn't in my class. I was like thriving on it. But anyway, so Warhol came from the idea where you, like you said, the purple cow. So how are you going to be different, right, from the rest? How are you going to stand out from the rest? And Warhol was the first, and I'm sure you know this because you're an art lover, but Warhol was the first artist to use art as marketing. So when art before was looked at as like still portraits and realism and all of this stuff, he was like, well, I'm going to put a can of Campbell's soup and I'm going to sell a crap load of them instead of just one. I'm going to make a ton of these and I'm going to market a product and I'm going to make money on that. And so he was the first one to really revolutionize the way that art was used and really just images were used for marketing. So anyway, not to go too much into detail, but basically Warhol stands as being different, being right. So being the first at something, changing it up, not, going against the grain. When everybody kind of thought he was scandalous for putting Marilyn Monroe on there and all this stuff, who was, a provocative image at the time, when you kind of are relishing in that space of being like, kind of against the grain, that's what we thrive for. Like we live for that, where people might think we're a little wacky or whatever. I'm like, yeah, keep thinking that, because we're going to just move forward with it and try to do something different. Yeah. So I love that answer.
That sticks in people's mind. You're 100% right. And can I backtrack to something real quick? Because you had mentioned a billboard.
Yes.
You had mentioned, I want people to see the orange and know, okay, that's Astrid, that's Adam. What you could do now, and you might already be doing this, but you could almost create your own digital billboard, even through like a paid Facebook ad or something that's relatively inexpensive where you had that image where you're getting it in front of probably more people than you could with an actual billboard through Facebook, you know, because when you talk about branding and in this day and age with Facebook and all that, if you have a little money to spend, a little leverage, you can throw things out like that. That is almost just like a digital billboard that pops up in front of people that live in, you know, your community, your targeted area. And it's a great way for people to start getting that into their brain. You know, they're scrolling through their Facebook feed and they keep seeing this orange, you know, and you know, maybe there's something on there, or maybe, maybe there is, you know, maybe it's obviously you're going to want some sort of clickable link or something. So where if they're like, what the hell is this? I keep seeing it, you know, you're going to draw them in hopefully. And then before you know it, they're on your website and they're looking for homes and you get them out there. So I don't know. It's just when you said billboard, I thought of that. It's the
billboard, right? It's the what you just said. It's like it's the what is it? It's the modern day billboard is being on those ads and paying for those. Mm-hmm. It's like brand awareness ads. Like I'm interning right now with a bunch of techie nerds who are teaching me all about ads because I know it's like funny because I built our website and stuff like that, but I don't know coding. I don't know any of this stuff. Without going too much into detail, they basically were telling me they were like. Today, they're like, if you're a real estate agent, if you're in any business, you're not on any type of technology marketing as far as digital marketing goes, you're gonna die. You're gonna disintegrate and you're gonna go extinct. So really quick, this leads me to my next question, James. For new agents, right? So for new agents, would you say that's your biggest advice for them? For new agents and for those that are maybe older agents that are struggling to transition into this new technology age that's kind of happening in real estate, what would your best advice be for them if you haven't already answered that through the whole technology marketing?
Yeah, you know, people might not love to hear this because it's not a sexy answer, but I would almost say for new agents or agents that are struggling, it's going to almost be the opposite. You know, I look at the branding and Facebook and Instagram and building a brand and all that as the cherry on the cake or the cherry on top type of thing. Or even, I always equate it to like building a home. So I say the foundation before the Instagram, before the technology, it's got to be the hard work, and it's got to be, you know, no one likes this word prospecting, but it's got to, you have to have conversations with people every single day, new people, and you have to figure out the amount of conversations that you want to have and with new people every day to build your business. It's not sexy. It's not fun, but it's the best way to build your business from the ground up. And then it's almost like, you know, to have a very successful business, or especially a real estate business, you need a strong wheel. So you picture like a bicycle wheel. It has all the spokes. You need all the spokes of the business. You need to prospect. You need to not be afraid to go knock on some doors, and then implement, you know, referrals, implement your paid marketing. You know, the more spokes you have in your wheel, that's going to drive your business, the stronger your business and your wheel is going to be. So I would say start with the foundation, get out there and hustle, talk to people, talk to new people, whether that's making phone calls, you know, whether that's hitting doors, whether that's knocking on expired listings. I don't care what it is. Talk to 10, 15 new people a day about real estate, and good things are going to start to happen. You know, that would be my advice for anyone that's starting or kind of struggling.
All right. So, hey, really quick, let me give you a shout out to your podcast, because you are a co-host, right, of a podcast called, what is it, Stay Hungry? Is that it?
Yeah, the Stay Hungry show. Yeah. And we've been on a bit of a hiatus, but you can find us on YouTube and all that. We had a little bit of an issue with the studio we were in, so we're trying to relocate, and it's been a little bit of a difficulty, but I might actually talk to you guys later on about how you guys do yours, because maybe we're going to simplify it a little bit.
Yeah, simplify it. Stay Candid. We do it from home. You know, we got the equipment, we got all our stuff, but yeah, we we started off first, like I was doing it in my living room, and then I was like, okay, this sounds like crap. And then I figured out we soundproof room, right? We kind of renovated a room, we soundproofed it, and we're like, all right, because that's where it's going to be our nursery when we have more babies. So we're like, all right, let's soundproof the room. Let's create this kind of space in here, and then just get the equipment. And it cuts out the cost. Because in reality, I mean, you got to think about, when it comes to podcasts, you're not making money immediately if you're getting sponsors or whatever. But, the money that you're putting out versus really, look.
It's just like anything. It's like it's just about putting quality content out there. I was going to say,
it's all about your content. Like, and you know this, James, because you're brilliant. I mean, you guys, I've listened to your podcast. You guys really talk about some good stuff, especially if anybody's listening who is a real estate agent. 100% pushing you in that direction. And then Kevin as well, Serhavant. Yep. I can't ever say his name. So I'm just going to call him Kevion. But yeah, no, absolutely. So definitely cutting those costs, because in the end, I mean, it's all about the juice of the content. And then what I've actually gotten the most, I call them Candid Sundays. I've gotten the most responses from those, where I just literally, I'm like in bed and I'm doing it, and people just kind of, it's so much easier to relate. So for sure, you guys got it. Just do it from home, or do it from like an office that's maybe.
I felt like Aubrey Marcus. You probably know who he is too.
Oh yeah,
and he just chills at his kitchen table.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
The only thing would be,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you guys got your you guys do you do your own editing, or
you should probably do it in your one room. Just do it in that room.
Yeah, right. We did it, and that was kind of the thing. We had a producer or someone that was basically handling everything, and then he kind of up and left kind of unexpectedly. So it kind of threw us for a loop. I know we're coming to the end of the show, but I had a couple things, if you don't mind, that I wanted to share, because
Absolutely.
These things make such a huge, tremendous difference in my life, and if I don't share them, I feel like I'm doing a disservice.
Please do.
Would that be okay if I just shared like two things?
Please do.
Okay. Real quick. So quick backstory, and then I'm going to give you the two things, and I'm out of here, because I know you're winding down on the show, and I don't want to hijack it. Last year, a lot of people don't know this unless you knew me personally, but I was going through a lot of health issues, and no one could really tell me why. I was getting like dizzy and kind of like constantly brain fog, like just really weird symptoms. Okay. And come to find out, some of them had to do with like some neck issues that I was having from my old job. But two things that I started doing at the tail end of last year, like I'm talking started in December, that have blown away anything else that I've done. And I really want to share these. Number one, I cut out all artificial sugars out of my life. And I don't know if you guys know much or done any research on artificial sweeteners like Splenda or, Diet Coke or sugar-free this or that. But I encourage everyone, I won't go into it, but anyone listening or you guys, go do the research on the chemicals and the things that they use for these sweeteners. Since I cut them out, like my energy levels and just the way I feel has changed dramatically. And the second thing I did was the intermittent fasting. I know that's been kind of a hot topic for a lot of people recently. I know you guys probably listen to like Rogan, or you mentioned Aubrey Marcus. A lot of people have been talking about intermittent fasting, and I'd been hearing about it for so long. And I had gotten up my I hadn't gotten like fat, but I definitely put on like an extra 10 pounds that I didn't want to have. I started intermittent fasting, and again, my energy levels, and I lost like 15 pounds in like a month and a half. It's just been insane. So anyone out there that's listening that might be having these crazy, weird symptoms, because I could not have a doctor or anyone tell me what was going on. And when I changed and did these two things, it just changed my life. So I wanted to make sure I threw those out there, because it's been a game changer for my energy, my focus, just everything. And I would encourage anyone to at least give it a try.
I love that you just did that, because there was a question I had in here and I kind of skipped over because I was trying to get going here. But yeah, thank you for that. For sure. I think that's going to help a lot of people, because there's so much of Oh man, when it comes to diet, like it really makes a huge difference in your energy. We don't eat those types of sugars. We actually do like agave sugar and stuff. But as far as like when we went basically broke, we started eating like mac and cheese and all this stuff just to get by. And man,
you gotta survive.
Yeah, but man, did our energy level just take a dump. It really did. Hey, real quick, I know you've got to get going, but really quickly, I have a few more questions and you can kind of speed this up here. But for your wife, I know your wife Felicia, you've mentioned her. So if I have this crazy idea, since it's the internet, it's going to be around forever. So if your girls and Felicia, your wife, if they were to listen back to this, what would you want them to know, like just to carry around with them always?
Wow, that is huge. Well, for my daughters and my wife, if for some reason, God forbid, I wasn't here, I would always want them to remember that they can do anything that they want to do. Anything, there's no limitations, especially these days. You can build anything, you can become anything. That's one of the main things, I think, especially, and things are changing these days rapidly, but for girls and women through the years, it's, they haven't always had the same opportunities and things as men have. And that's changed dramatically, over the past, I'd say, really accelerated that path of evolution for women over the past, 20 years or so. But I think it's still important for them to remember that, and keep in mind that anything they want to become or do, it can be done and it is possible. I think that would be the first thing that I want to convey to them. Obviously that I love them and all that, but I feel like I'm on a deserted island and I might not make it, so I'm recording this for them.
That's kind of the idea. You never, I lost my mom. She was here and 3 weeks later gone. We could have never imagined. So that's where this whole question kind of came from, just because I figured, if they were ever to listen back to this, especially when they're older, when your girls are older, and I know your wife's going to listen to this. Right now they're a little younger, your daughters, but if this, stays around and they kind of have this just to listen back to on their daddy. So I love that. Yeah. All right. Hey,
that was a great question. I appreciate that.
No, for sure. Hey, one last question. We ask this to everybody who comes on. It's the one that stumps most people, but it's the best answer we get. And that is, what do you know for sure?
I know for sure that I don't know enough. No matter how much there's always another level. There's always another something that you can learn. You never are the master. You're always continually the student, no matter what level you're at. So I know for sure that I do not know enough yet.
I love that answer.
That's good.
Yeah. Awesome.
Good jobs.
You rock.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on. This was a lot of fun. And anytime you guys want to do a round 2, or we will definitely have you guys on the Stay Hungry show.
For sure.
We're going to have to make that happen. And once we get our studio situation nailed down or whatever. But I do appreciate it. And I appreciate everyone that was listening. And if you're on Instagram, follow me at James_Shelby. I always like to connect with people like yourselves. If it wasn't for Instagram, we wouldn't be talking right now.
Absolutely. Exactly. And hey guys that are listening, I'm going to be linking everything that you will be able to, just to be able to contact him if you have any questions about real estate, if you're out in Temecula, Murrieta, all of that surrounding areas. James is your guy. So I'll be linking everything below. So look for that. And then also, James, we adore you. Thank you so much for doing this.
I love you guys. Thank you so much.
We love you.
I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Hey, before you go, if you enjoyed this podcast today, we do ask that you give us a rating and a review. It really helps new listeners be exposed to Good Vibes Sunday and bring them on over. So as always, we appreciate you and thank you. Thank you for tuning in, Good Vibers. And be sure to subscribe to Good Vibes Sunday by downloading the podcast app found at the App Store. Catch you all next week. Have a happy Sunday.